Um, Welcome everyone. Welcome to this wonderful panel called Women Breaking Barriers, organized by Mondo Internazionale Nigeria and Mondo Internazionale. I'm sure most of you listeners will probably know, but just in case you don't, Mondo Internazionale is a nonprofit organization founded in 2017 in Milan, and with the purpose of fostering the positive impact of young people in the world. And since 2017, Mondo Internazionale has opened 3 headquarters in Africa, of course in Nigeria, but then also in Cameroon and the Ivory Coast. Among the core values of Mondo Internazionale, there's surely promoting gender equality and also empowering women. So this is one of the core reasons why we wanted to do this event, which was an idea of Alex, the president of Mondo Internazionale Nigeria. Of course, there's lots of things to say when it comes to gender equality. We have International Women's Day right behind us, but for many countries, this is also Women's History Month. So gender is really a core focus now, but I think gender equality should be the focus of our talks really every day. So that's why I'm joined today by Efe, Oriomi, Gloria, and Julia, for young women who will speak about their experiences and also their perspectives on gender in the workplace and how they're pursuing their careers, sometimes maybe even in traditionally male-dominated fields, and what are the difficulties and maybe also the advantages or their perspectives they've seen. Just to give you a brief introduction of the 4 of them, then I will leave the floor to each and every one of them. Efe is a self-discovery and personal fulfillment coach, specifically for young women working in Nigeria. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Economics and also a Master's in International Business. She's a jeweler, designer, author of 3 books, and I think her experience on leading on women's leadership and coaching women's leaders will be a really nice intervention during this panel. Oriomi is the leader and founder of a Spirit Field, and also she has a history of connecting the energies of young people seeking a meaningful life and career experience. She is a clinical pharmacist. She graduated from the University of Lagos with distinction, and she's also keenly interested in cosmetics, of course, with a sustainable principle on the development of the cosmetics. Then we have Julia. Julia is the director of Mondo Internazionale Hub, the division of Mondo Internazionale in Italy that is specifically focused on research and development and business. She is also she also graduated with honors in political science, law, and markets at the University of Milan, and she will pursue and continue her studies, hopefully with a master in public policies and European affairs, if I'm not mistaken. And then last but not least, we have Gloria. Gloria has Polish and Ugandan origins, but she grew up in Italy, and in Mondo Internazionale Italy, she is the head of strategy and planning. She studied international relations in Rome, but now she's also graduating with a master's degree in strategy and management. And I think all of their experiences will certainly tell us a lot about what role does gender play in the workplace, but also it will be a nice comparison to see also what difficulties we face from different countries and different places and different backgrounds that we have. So I will now leave the floor to Efe. If you want to tell us a little bit more maybe about your background, something that I haven't touched on, and also tell us about your experience and your perspective.
All right, thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You've said most of what I would have said if I was introducing myself. I've always had a passion for women. When I was a little girl, I grew up with my grandmother, who was a mentor to so many women. And they would come to the house and, share their stories, and they'd be telling her things confidentially, really, but I would overhear while they were talking. And a lot of their experiences made such a deep impact on me. I didn't realize how deep the impact was, but it was there. And I always felt like I wanted to champion the cause of women. I wish I could change the world for women. So it's something that has grown with me. I have something written down. I'm just going to read through it and talk through it. The truth is, from my evaluation, we live in a man's world. We live in a world that teaches boys, from when they are young, that they are favored in the world, especially in cultures like ours in Africa that are very societies that are very culturally bound and traditionally bound. So we find out that boys are taught from a young age that the world favors them. When I had two kids, the older one was a girl and the younger one was a boy, and I had a nanny for them. And I remember her telling my boy, who was younger, telling the girl who was younger that she should respect her brother because he was a boy. And I'm thinking, and I had to tell her, I said, no, leave them alone. He should respect his sister. She's older. It's not that she shouldn't respect her brother, but not just because she's a boy. She's saying, oh, don't you know he's a boy? Respect him. And I'm saying, no, that's not the way it should be. So boys are taught from when they are young that the world favors them, that they have advantages in life just because of their gender. And for so long, this baffled me. And I chose to challenge it from when I was a little girl, from when I was young. I played football with the boys. And, I'd hear things like, oh, don't play rough. You're a girl. Girls shouldn't play rough. You'll hurt yourself. You'll get scars, and you shouldn't have scars. Girls shouldn't have scars and all that. I led my class throughout my primary education. And, I had I overheard parents of some of the boys in my class, because many of them were family friends. I overheard them a few times saying to their sons, in my hearing, you have to do better. How can a girl be leading you in class? But, rather than cowering me, rather than it provoked the thinking in me, why not? What is it that prevents me from being the best, from doing things that they reserve for boys? Why are some things reserved for boys? What stops me? And if I could not find a reason, then I would go ahead to do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't grow up wanting to be a boy or wishing I was a boy, no. But I just didn't feel like I wanted to be limited because I was a girl. I did not want to be limited. I did all the normal stuff that girls did. I played the games with the girls and all that. But if the stuff that the boys were doing interested me, I would do it. Luckily, I came from a family that didn't distinguish too much between my brothers and I. In terms of upbringing, I grew up in a family of more women, strong women, really. And I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. We all did house chores, we all cleaned, we all swept. But there was this subtle underlying thing that I picked up as I was growing up, that a girl had to prepare for marriage. That from a young age, you had to sit right, you had to walk right, you had to get the right domestic skills, be polite, be amenable, speak right, because one day you will get married. And that was always the reason, oh, girls don't do this, it will affect you when you get married. But and it was a huge part of why I decided at age 11 that I was not going to get married. I just decided I do not want to marry. I did not want to be subject to a life of servitude. I had dreams and I didn't want to be limited. And in my young mind, the choices were to be single and live and free, or to be married and limited. But you know what? I've been married for over 16 years now, and I continue to push boundaries. I worked in the male-dominated field of logistics and warehousing for over 7 years, and I repeatedly won awards and commendations as staff of the year, even in the midst of, several male colleagues. In my last job in that industry, it was a team of 25 people, and we were only 2 females. We're 23 males. And for 3 years consecutively, I won the award of staff of the year. And so I continue to push these boundaries. And at some point, I realized that it's not so much about what society or culture tells us. It's not about the boundaries that other people put in place. It's not those boundaries that limit us. Rather, it's our personal choices. It's our perception of those boundaries. We cannot define the rules that culture or society chooses to live by or chooses to follow. We can't, but we can find our own way around those rules. At every point in time, we can find our way within those rules. We can find a way to do whatever we want to do in spite of those rules. And personally, I believe a lot in activism. I respect the work of people who amplify the voice and the struggles of women and all that, and cause changes like that. But I strongly also believe that every woman must make her own path. Every woman must create her own path. There will always be something standing in our way as women or as humans. There will always be something standing in our way, and we must find a way to surmount those obstacles, whatever it is. And as women, especially African women, our obstacles are mainly the culture and the traditional mindsets and the limitations that they place on us. But we must determine our own end game. What is your personal end game? What is it you want out of life? And you must doggedly go for those goals. You must doggedly follow them and choose them. You must choose to challenge whatever personal obstacles stand in your way. In fact, we must learn to use those obstacles as stepping stones. That's what life is about. That's what living is about. And gender shouldn't stop us. So I'm not so big on it. I know what we say when we say gender equality, but I believe that, where we may be different in terms of gender, there are fundamental differences in us as women and men, but that shouldn't stop us. If you have a goal, irrespective of whether you're female or male, create your path and go for it. Culture, society, they will always try and find a way to stop you. If they don't stop you because you're female, they will find another reason to try and stop you. But you must doggedly find your path. And that's what I've chosen to do. That's been my experience. There are all kinds of reasons that they have tried to stop me from the littlest things. But I have always said, no, I choose to challenge those obstacles and I will surmount them because that is what I want. Thank you.
Thank you. I totally subscribe to your last concept idea. I think gender, of course, is important, and it's important that we reflect on the inequalities that we are presented with because we're women. But in the end, the gender should not be the thing that defines us or defines and comes into play when we decide what we want to be later on in life, or even what our goals are. So I 100% agree with you there. I also maybe have a question for you,
Okay.
but since you have a lot of experience in coaching young women, I wanted to see whether you have seen that women are more discouraged in pursuing certain goals, and how have you responded maybe to difficulties that women face when they're cheered on or they have big goals compared to men?
Okay, what my experience with that has been that many times women give in. They give in to the status quo because it can be hard to fight the status quo. It can be very hard to fight traditions. It can be very hard to fight mindset. So I find out that a lot of women, they just give in. It's like, you know what, sometimes it's not worth the struggle. Let me just do whatever I can, and let me just do enough and just move on. And so sometimes women choose not to make their dreams too big so that they don't have to fight too hard. But in working with women, what I've found is that, and that's why I'm very particular about personal fulfillment. Even though many women feel like they're okay, they're happy because they have the basic things, by the time there's a yearning inside many that want more, that want so much more than what they're able to give. And I find out that many people are afraid to contemplate those things because of the implications of it. And so by the time we speak, by the time we unearth those things and we discover what it is that they truly want, then it becomes something that when you've opened, it's like a Pandora's box. Once you've opened it, you can't close it back anymore. Now your eyes have been opened. You want so much more. And I know that it can be tough to achieve some of those goals, but my philosophy and advice for most women is start with what you have. Start with, look around you, look within your context, because some women, people live in different contexts. Your context may allow you some advantages that my context won't allow me. And in some women have a lot of money, but no freedom. Some women have a lot of freedom, maybe, but no money. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's work within the context of what you have. Let's look at what you have. Some women, by the time they are realizing some of these things, they have 3, 4 children and things are a bit complicated. I'm like, what's the smallest part of this goal, of this big goal that you have? Can we start with the smallest part of it? Break it down into the smallest things and start to take a step. And in doing that, you are actually moving closer towards your goals. It's better than sitting back and, saying, and just throwing your hands up and saying, it's too big, I can't do anything. So we break it down to the smaller components and take it one step at a time, but always within the context of the particular woman, always within the context, marriage, when people get married, is such a big deal. And because of the upbringing of African men, you find some women have very difficult marriages, very difficult contexts, and it's not necessarily that they want to get divorced and leave the marriage and walk away, but they have to find a way to navigate it. And I'm saying, okay, let's sit down, talk about your context and see how you can work within your context to still achieve the same goals, And so it's about wisdom, it's about discernment, and it's about being, using the natural gift of discernment that I believe most women have to your own advantage. And it works most of the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's also one thing that surely many people, many women, even if they don't have, they're not born with, they learn a lot when they grow up. So that's certainly something we can use to our advantage.
Yeah.
And I will now leave the floor to Julia.
Sure. So hi everyone, I'm Giulia, and I would like first to thank Mondo Internazionale Nigeria for this opportunity. And I would like to thank all the women with us today, from Miriam to Efe to Oriomi to Gloria. And thank you, Efe, for your insights, for your discussion. And I believe it's truly inspiring, and this is the right place where to do it, to discuss the differences that there are when it comes to gender equality in Nigeria and in Italy, because we are representing these countries. Talking about me, I'm 22 years old, so I'm definitely going through my personal and professional path of growing, learning, and studying. I can say that I'm lucky because personally I've never felt direct discriminations toward myself, but I did felt some sort of soft disencouragement when it comes to doing certain things or going through certain goals or set myself certain ambitions. And most of the times, this type of restrictions would also come from myself, from a lack of confidence, from a fear, from some sort of sense of inadequacy. And it's very important when we talk about this, we are talking about women without barriers, because barriers can be both external and internal, as you said. External, it's about breaking stereotypes, it's about pushing forward, set yourself certain goals and go for them. Nonetheless, whatever the social expectations are, whatever maybe your family will want you to become, or whatever your spouse will want you to be. And breaking internal barriers is about telling yourself that you're worth it. So you're able to do certain things, you're confident to set the goals that you set for yourself, and to always push forward toward the next goal. I was inspired by what you said, because it also reminded me of an activist that probably you do know, which is Nigerian, and she is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And she wrote a manifesto where she talks about gender equality. She was born in Nigeria, but then she moved to the States. So she has this double vision of both African reality, but also American reality. And she talks about the importance of formation when it comes to the expectations that are put to boys and to girls, about the roles that they should define for themselves, even just talking about the type of games they should play, or the type of attitude that they have within the family. And this is strictly important also for us in Italy when it comes to the kind of expectations that are set for ourselves since we are children. In Italy, we have still a lot of challenges to face when it comes to gender equality, and one of the main one became relevant specifically during this time, during the pandemic, because we've known that the part of the society that was mostly affected by COVID and by the whole crisis, social, economical, sanitary crisis that we've lived through, were women. And this is strictly important because women are the part of society that tend to achieve the type of jobs that relate more to cure, to the elderly, to the children. So they are jobs that are also more fragile to the changes of our society, specifically when it comes to the digital revolution. And this aspect is strictly connected to the education, to the formation of women, because women tend not to choose paths related to the STEAM subjects, so the ones related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematicians, which is the type of sectors that lead our progresses and innovation throughout the society. In Italy today, only 50% of the women are employed, so one woman out of two. And there are different causes to this, because there are problems related to gender gap, gender pay gap, institutional representation, political representations, but also the amount of work that women dedicate to the household, so to the care and the type of amount of work they can put into their job, so their employment and eventually their independence, their economic independence, and their self-fulfillment. So many challenges, and I would like to connect this point to what we're doing right now in Mondo Internazionale, because within Mondo Internazionale, as Miriam said, since more or less September 2020, I've been coordinating the division of AB, which relates to research, sustainable development, but also public policies. And specifically one of our projects, which is MIP, and it's an incubator of public policies, has seen us dealing with the issue of gender equality within the workplace, and specifically the balance, the work-life-work balance that working parents can achieve. So we are trying to analyze this topic specifically during the pandemic, where we've seen a lot of problems related to school being closed and the parents living with their children. We are trying to analyze this issue and write down specific proposals that could be advanced to face the challenges that women, but also men, face in today's society in Italy specifically. So yes, let's talk about that. I will send you the floor.
That is something that should definitely be brought to the attention of many more people, specifically the effect that the pandemic has had on women. Besides the obvious effects on the taking care of children, also the elderly, which has become a problem for a lot of women. There's also the fact that, at least in Italy, for what I've seen, the statistics, the majority of people who have lost their jobs during the pandemic are women, like an astounding majority, like more than 80%, I think. So that also tells something of who is expected to take care of the family and how can I say this? Essentially satisfied needs, whatever needs are the result of a new situation, of an emergency, are for the majority women. And I think that's, as you said, Julia, and also as Efe said before, really comes down to education. I've also had experiences, let's say, when, let's say that the concept of independence for women is always linked to also being independent in the house. You have to learn how to do lots of chores, for example, and that is something that maybe is not expected of men or of boys, I think. Sorry for my little comment as well, but I will leave the floor now to Oriyomi.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mondo Internazionale, for having me here. It's so wonderful and such a privilege to be here with such strong women. I really celebrate you all and your accomplishments and who you represent, what you represent. Thank you so much. So when I first saw this invite, when I saw this flyer, I thought to myself, women breaking barriers. And I had a flood of thoughts. There were a number of things that went through my mind. You know, I kind of assessed myself personally. I tried to put into perspective some of the women that I look up to, some of the women that mentor me, some of the women that I've seen do great things. And, you know, one of the things I said to myself that I would say is to give my own definition of what it means for a woman to break a barrier, because breaking barriers is not just about the triumphs of success. It's not just about walking the corridors of fame. There are many great women who did great things that we rarely hear of, or we don't hear of as much as some other women. We're not all Michelle Obamas, we're not all Oprah Winfrey's, but we are breaking barriers in our own ways, in our own nations, in our society where we find ourselves. And I think that is worthy of commendation. Women in general, and from hearing Julia and Efe, I can tell, like, women in general, you know, we face so many challenges as opposed to the male gender. We face a lot of challenges. There are many barriers that have just been preset. Before you were born, they were there for you as a woman, but we have to face those barriers and break them. So like I said, my own little definition of breaking a barrier isn't just being famous, isn't just having a track record of multiple successes or being popular or having your name mentioned as often, but just, you know, define the odds set in your locality, define the odds set in your country, define the odds set for your gender. The moment you do that, you're breaking barriers. No matter how little, no matter how, you know, insignificant you might think it is, you know, you are breaking barriers. And I am breaking barriers in three main expressions. So I believe a woman, you know, breaks barriers by exploring and expressing all of her potentialities. Now, all of us here have the potential to become many things. I can become a pilot if I want, but I'm a pharmacist, okay? But if I still choose to become a pilot, I can get it. You know, we have so many potentials. I can become anything I want. You can become anything you want. The moment you decide it, you think it, you envision it, you can become it. So the moment you can break, I'm breaking barriers with three main expressions. And one is through the platform, the faith-based platform called Spirit Filled. I launched that in the year 2018, and it's a platform where I bring together young people, give them a genuine focus, and I give them a space to express their passion. So one of the things you see on Spirit Filled is lots of music, lots of conversation. These are things that bring young people together, both male and female, you know, but of course, because it's being represented by a woman, other women seeing another woman doing that, it motivates them, it encourages them that, hey, look, she's doing that. I think I can do it too. So the faith-based platform Spiritfield brings together young people, encourages them to be the best that they can be, and one of the directions we're taking is to provide some sort of mentorship that is tailored to their specific desires, tailored to their specific passions, because you have a group of young people, they're not all the same. They're not all trying to become the same thing. They have different interests, different pursuits, and we're trying to create a mentorship platform to enable them express that and grow, in those, the paths that they've chosen. Yes, professionally, I am a licensed pharmacist here in Nigeria. I practice as a pharmacist presently in a hospital setting. So you could practice pharmacy in different industries. Either you're in a hospital setting, you're in a retail, that's the community pharmacy, you're in the production, that's the industries, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine being produced by AstraZeneca. Now, AstraZeneca is one of the top pharmaceuticals in the world, and you could practice pharmacy in that sector. So I am presently practicing in the hospital setting. Yet again, another barrier I'm breaking. So as a licensed professional pharmacist, I work with a hospital that has enabled us provide world-class healthcare. And the truth is, we cannot deny the fact that Nigeria has a very deficient healthcare system, but the setting that I found myself enables me to provide healthcare on a very superior standard, opposite to what we find generally. So for example, we're in the course of being certified by COSASA, and that's a world-recognized certifying body. They certify hospitals and give them awards and certificates that, hey, you can go to this hospital and get good healthcare. And that has been tremendously challenging. As a woman, I must say it's been challenging. We've had to rise above the standard set as a nation and move to a world-class level. And that can be difficult because generally healthcare isn't the very best, but we're getting better. We're getting better as a nation, and we're getting better as a people. So that's another side of my expression. As a woman, it's the same woman, but different expressions. That's the second side. And the third side goes along with my passion for cosmetics. Me being a pharmacist actually fueled that. It fueled my passion for cosmetic formulation. Now, I don't make lipstick or eyeshadows or things like that, but I have a small scale business called Aclofleur Handmade, and for now I have 2 range of skincare products that are naturally made, handmade with natural ingredients that are locally sourced. Now, I learned this personally. I was self-taught, and I learned from a lot of international bodies. I learned from some foreign people. I had some YouTube in there too, but then I'm getting certificates. I'm getting professional certificates, but I basically started by learning from other people that had gone ahead of me. Funny enough, I learned from only women. The only formulators I found out there were mostly women. I learned from them, and most of them tailored their formulas and their products to what was available in their environment. And so I said to myself, look, I cannot, for example, there are certain oils that they're a bit scarce in this country because of our climate. You can't really find them. They're not really, even if you found them, they might degrade easily. They're not as useful as if it was in another climate that was less humid, and it's different from ours here. So I had to tailor my productions, my formulations, my recipes to fit my local environment. I use locally sourced products. For example, shea butter. That is found in Africa mostly, and Nigeria has a very rich source of shea butter, as well as palm oil. And when I researched these ingredients, I found out that they were super, they were fantastic. They had great qualities for the skin. So I looked inwards, used the resources that were around me and made the best of it. And yet again, broke another barrier. Yeah. So this is the third expression of how one woman is breaking several barriers. Okay. So my charge today is that, for any woman out there watching this, You know, breaking a barrier doesn't mean you have to be popular. It doesn't mean you have to do exactly what someone else is doing. It means that you're taking the advantage of what is around you and making the best use of it. Define all the odds, define the preset standards or stereotypes that were there before you, and doing the best that you can. And many times you find that women with that mindset go ahead to become the Michelle Obamas, go ahead to become the Oprah Winfreys, go ahead to become the Julias, go ahead to become the Miriams and the Glorias and the Efes. Yes, you get what I'm saying. But yes, many women like that end up being the best of the best. And yeah, that's what I have to say about women breaking barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very interesting to hear also because essentially you, from what I gather, you joined cosmetics which is typically maybe considered an interest of women, with being a pharmacist, which is also a profession of, as Julia said before, STEM. So there's definitely a barrier there when it comes to even joining this thing, maybe the connection.
Absolutely.
And also making sure people understand that women, if they're into cosmetics, might be just as qualified as men because they have the same degrees and the same certifications that men went through and got to be where they are.
Yes, yes.
Gloria, I leave the floor to you last.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Efe. Thank you, Oriomi, for your amazing speeches. Really interesting, really inspirational. And I will briefly present myself. I'm Gloria. I am today representing Mondo Internazionale as the head of strategy and planning. And last week, when we had the usual call between the two teams, Mondo Internazionale in Italy and Mondo Internazionale in Nigeria, I heard Alex, the president of Mondo Internazionale Nigeria, who told me he would have the pleasure to have me as a speaker in this event. And I was immediately thrilled by the idea for three main reasons. First, because of how important I consider talking about equal opportunities in order to raise awareness on some issues that we still need to tackle globally. And one of them is the importance of female empowerment. And this month is International Women's Month, so that fits perfectly. And secondly, I was thrilled to get to know such amazing women like all of you, who I admire, and I can see that all of you have so much to share, and I'm sure that we are all learning from your experiences. And thirdly, because this kind of meetings is what we need and what Mondo Internazionale is so fond of, because it is an exchange of experiences, an open dialogue between different people with different backgrounds to show new perspectives. So for that, I thank all of you, and I thank Alex from Nigeria for being the man who actually believes in women breaking barriers. Now, I heard the different definitions of breaking barriers, and your speeches were really amazing. And I will bring my own concept of breaking barriers by talking about my experience. So I started working with Mondo Internazionale in 2019. I had just graduated in international relations, and I finished an internship in an international environment and was starting a master's degree in strategy and management. Then I came across Mondo Internazionale and I saw the potential right away. It was an association created for and led by youth with a strong will to just do things, to develop opportunities for other young people in a world where apparently being young is a barrier itself between an educational path and the actual work environment. So at the time, I had just finished a project based on the formulation of a business plan, and I created a fictional business idea with my team. But I had always been fond of initiatives that had a positive social impact. So I offered to be the business plan for Mondo Internazionale. And I did because I believe in the reality they were creating and the complexity of reaching such high goals as becoming the main bridge between the ideas of young people under 35 years old and the private and the public sector globally. So that is how I became part of all of this. And it was by simply offering my skills and my knowledge at the time and wanting to make a contribution to something already groundbreaking. So since 2019, a lot of things have changed and have evolved. We are now a reality of about 200 young people at an international level, mainly in Europe and in Africa. And we are offering opportunities in the field of education, of research, and information. And every member has the chance to learn by doing and experience a work environment on our digital platforms. So we are communicating with institutions and businesses, and most importantly, we are building an international network where the cooperation and respect for diversity is the key. So about my background, in my description, I happen to write that I am currently an Italian and a Polish citizen, currently living in Italy with an Ugandan background. And I grew up in Poland with my mom, who has always been a hard worker. And in this, I think that me and Efe have something in common, because I gladly heard your story about your grandmother. And my mom worked in an international company, and she was a single mom. So also talking about the equity between men and women in building a career while also taking care of a child and a family. So she has always been a role model for me. And she used to tell me that if you want something, you have to work for it and you have to study really hard. And in fact, I still believe it is true. And fortunately, I had the opportunity to be able to invest in education while studying. And I have always done something more to be able to develop some additional skills to learn something new. But I also know that globally, women actually need to study harder than men to get the job they want and to be validated. So a couple days ago, I read a report stating that women with postgraduate degrees still earn less than men with only bachelor's degrees, when the salaries for graduate men are growing at a faster pace than for the female peers. And I think that this is something we should all work on. So we need to talk about removing the glass ceiling, involving all kinds of stakeholders, from governments to businesses to young people like us. And for that, I am bringing the example of Mondo Internazionale, like Julia did before, because something I learned in Mondo Internazionale is that having a meaningful role in an organization should only depend on your skills and your knowledge. And in fact, more than the 65% of young women in Mondo Internazionale have great responsibilities and are directors and heads of the different areas and teams we are working with. So that is something that we all go so proud about. So for me, breaking barriers is working hard and then being recognized, having the chance to being recognized for your value. Then I read another article that I think is really interesting. It is McKinsey Global Research Report that finds that 12 trillion could be added to the global GDP by 2025 by advancing women's equality. So the private, public, and social sectors will need to close the gender gaps in work and in society in order to grow the global GDP. because women account for half of the world's working age population. So I think that are some of the things that we should talk about and learn about when looking at our societies and their development. So thank you all for participating today, for hearing my speech, for the great conversation we are having. And I'll give the floor back to Miriam.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for sharing your experience. And also I share 100% what you said regarding Mondo Internazionale, of course. I'm a more recent entry compared to you and Julia, but I've seen just the same thing, and that's what also should be the goal for every company or even public institution, to allow women to be in the same positions as men, regardless of gender, of course, because that is not going to play a role in how they perform. I'd like to ask if you have questions for each other. Otherwise, I will invite, of course, questions from the audience. So we can also have a conversation between who is listening on Facebook and here on Zoom. But first, I'd say if you have any comments, further comments to make, feel free. Otherwise, I already have a question, so we can start with that if you want to. So Georgia here on Zoom asked, what are your suggestions for the young girls living in your countries who want to start the same career as you? So I don't know if who wants to go first, but please feel free.
Yeah, I think that Efe should respond to this, because I heard her story. She is definitely one of the most interesting of the work experiences that we have heard today.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. Thank you. All right. The things that helped me to stand out in my career, and which I believe that they were more of values. It wasn't so much the knowledge. I had the knowledge, but the knowledge is common to everybody. Everybody had the knowledge. And so the values, the things that really stood me out in my career were my values. Values of, things like tenacity, values like can do. I don't see challenge. I don't see impossibilities. I will follow a problem through till it is solved. And I realized that even because I worked, I think about a year of my work experience in logistics was in the UK. And even there, I had male colleagues, but that doggedness to say, I was a temporary staff, I was a contract staff in that job. And the management of the warehouse called me when I was leaving back for school, and they were saying, consider staying because we've never had anybody work like this. And it was that doggedness to say, whatever I do, I will do well. I will do it very, very well. And I think that somehow some of those values, I don't know why, but they appear to have been lost, whether when I was in the UK or when I was or working in Nigeria. I just noticed that some of these values were not common. So things like can do, I will give it, there's no impossibility. I will see it through to the end. Things like integrity. I remember a time that I was overpaid my salary in the, my salary in the UK, and I called my supervisor and I told him, and he was surprised, like, why would you come and tell us that? Because the organization didn't realize. So that was something that was surprising for them. So I just realized that the things that really, really stand people out when it comes to career, especially for young people, are the values. And I think like it's even easier in the world where we are now, where people, especially I see a lot of young people who think that it doesn't matter, this is a free world where I should be able to, they call them the generation Z and the millennials. They have a lot of personality issues. If they could stick with the values, the core values, can do, tenacity, integrity, things like that. Those are the things that really stand people out when it comes to career, because really, when it comes to the knowledge is all out there on the internet. The knowledge is all out there. It's so easy to acknowledge, to get the knowledge. It's very easy to access the knowledge, but the values are the things that really stand people out. So if young people can stand and work on their values, I think they will go far. Yeah.
Thank you, Efe. I would like to add to that something that is really interesting and of which Julia spoke earlier is the internal barrier that we are creating in ourselves. So I think that is a point that young women should work on when educating themselves, and when they are trying to reaching their goals, try to put the goals higher and to not limit ourselves by our internal barriers. Then the education, of course, as you said, is everywhere. You can have access through the internet. You can have access to courses through free courses that you can find online nowadays. So the main thing is to try to not limit ourselves in our goals.
Yeah, I would like to endorse also what Oriomi said before about focusing on our own reality, so on our own limits, our possibilities, and work on those. So every single day, it's a challenge for us to understand what's wrong, understand what we could do better, and push forward to actually achieve the goals that we want to set ourselves for. And it's specifically when we challenge ourselves, when we go out of our comfort zone, that we are able to gain a perspective. We're able to further grow, to understand the society around us and to understand how we can contribute to it. Personally, I made the decision to study political science to enter myself into the world of public affairs and European affairs when I first went to Africa. It was I was 16 years old and I went for a volunteering experience in Tanzania. And it was a truly inspiring experience for me, because it was the truly first time that I will actually physically and mentally go out of my comfort zone and discover further cultures, meet new people, exchange different ideas, and understand that maybe the way I've seen things up to that moment was limited, or at least there was a single story being told, and there will be many others' point of view to address a problem, a situation, a criticism. And those are the kind of experiences, as it is the experience with Mondo Internazionale for all of us, that push us forward, that allow us to debate and form ourselves with different patterns that are made up by all the people that we have around us, so by our own community. We don't need to become the next Beyonce or the next Michelle Obama to understand what are the issues around us and how we can contribute to them. Because the single time that, for example, we advocate for our rights or we speak up when we see a discrimination or we leave a discrimination, that's the actual moment where we can make a change and we can help others understand the change around us.
Great, awesome. Like, I totally agree with what everyone has said, but I'm going to specifically say this, for any lady, because the question was young girls who wanted to follow the same path that we are in. For example, I'm a pharmacist, and for any young girl or young woman who would want to follow that same, path, the first thing I would say, it requires hard work, and you have to keep raising the bar every time. The key, which I kind of found out late, is to go farther, go to the farthest distance, as far as you can get to, keep raising the bar every single time. And it requires hard work. It requires for you to be resilient, because many, the pharmacy the pharmaceutical curriculum is wide and cannot really be exhausted even in the 6-year duration that we're given in school. So you have to personally commit to going the extra mile and studying and being up to date on the current world trends. Okay, so for any woman or any young lady out there who wants to become a pharmacist, it is one of the best decisions I made, you know, towing this career path. And it's possible, it's very doable, and you will not regret it. Yeah.
Thank you all for your answers. And I share all that you've said, and also I agree particularly with what Oriomi last said. Sometimes you have to, especially if you're a woman, it's also important maybe to go the extra mile when you're studying, not necessarily because it will be expected of you. Of course, there's a difficulty that maybe, as it was mentioned before, sometimes men, even with less qualifications, are put to a higher degree, are given a bigger salary, but also because I think it's important to enhance sometimes the confidence that young women don't have when applying for a job or continuing their education. I think if the background, if you're really fortunate and you have a lot of support, sometimes the background you're in can put you down or make you think that you can't really achieve what you've set out to achieve. So maybe doing more is also, and gaining from different courses, different perspectives is what brings you more experience and more confidence, and also helps to navigate what maybe you want to do. I'll see, but if there is any other questions. Otherwise, I have a question for you as well. Because I think we've talked about the situation in families, let's say, how sometimes how you're brought up can influence, and also we've brought up legislation, how sometimes women are paid less than men, especially, of course, in private companies. There's more laws regarding public institutions, but there's still a lot to do to bridge the gap. What do you think? Do you think that the two things must, the upbringing of women and the legislation must go hand in hand in order for us to reach gender equality eventually? Or do you think one is more important, or will be what allows us to reach the other goal?
Okay. Let me share my thoughts on that. Okay. Honestly, I think both have to go hand in hand, but you know, because I'm so big on, you know, the personal space, I believe that a lot of it has to do with the upbringing. A lot of it has to do with the personality of the women. The reason is that if it is women who are strong, women who are empowered personally, women who can speak out, women who are raised to be strong, that will have the strength to demand for a change in the legislation. So if women are keeping quiet, if women continue to be raised to be quiet, to stay in the background, not to speak, to accept whatever is given, our struggle will not be fought on our behalf. It is women who need to voice out and say, this will not work, this has to change. And so I think that it starts from the upbringing, it starts from the cultural, you know, the upbringing basically of the individual woman. Women need to be raised to be strong. As we, there's so much, you know, we don't have a lot of time, but in my work with women, for example, I see women who are going through domestic violence in their marriages, and their mothers are telling them to go back into those marriages. This woman has, I mean, people have left a domestically abusive marriage, and are trying to struggle through, but their family members are putting pressure on them to go back. Legislature can't change that. There is legislature in Nigeria against domestic abuse. There's legislation against violence, but the enforcers of that legislation is the society. The society is not going to be with the individual woman. I mean, the court and the law courts are not going to be with the individual woman who is under pressure by her family. So from a family standpoint, from an upbringing standpoint, from our other institutions like our religious institutions, our families, our traditional institutions, our cultural institutions, we need to do better in changing the mindset of women so that women can be strong enough to take the steps that will lead to the change in legislature and also to enforcing the legislature when it is finally changed.
That's really interesting perspective. Maybe I think I agree. I think legislation must be, in the end, supported by a strong foundation when it comes to raising women and also men, because of course you have to raise boys the same way to respect women and also promote gender equality as well.
Yeah.
Yes, can I just add something?
Yeah, of course.
So I think your question, Miriam, is really, really interesting, because surely the upbringing and the way that you're raised when you're a little girl is influencing how you are growing and how you are becoming a woman. So I also think that not only the family is important in that, but also all your surroundings, so your friends, but also the society you are raised in is important for the vision that you have of yourself as a woman. And I also think that nowadays we have more opportunities to get to know which are our rights and our opportunities to develop ourselves, also through the internet, the social media, the communication we are receiving, first institutionally from the organizations that are working for women's rights, and then the communication in our society that are communicating to the youngest all the rights that we have, the opportunities that we have, and they are doing it in a way that we can all understand that we are all equal, both men and women. So we have all the same rights, and this is part of the reason why we are here today talking about women in entrepreneurship and women working and women achieving goals. So thank you for the question.
You're welcome. Thank you for your perspective, Gloria. And Julia or Yomi, if you want to add something as well, or maybe comment on what was said. Otherwise, it's already past 1 p.m. So I think I've taken enough of your time, let's say, and I can leave you be into the rest of the day.
Maybe there's just a last question I see. We could address that one if we have time, maybe only 10 minutes. What do you say?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see that. First of all, Yuval says, thank you for your inspiring speeches. And I would love to hear from you how, in your opinion, can the guys who are now listening support the cause for women breaking barriers today, whether in the workplace or within the family? This is also very, very interesting as a question.
If you want to, I can begin. I think it's a very important question because for a lot of time it has been thought that gender equality will be only women's issue, when it comes to society and its progress when it's actually not, because gender equality is a matter that regards both women and men. So it's very important. The first step is to acknowledge the type of discriminations and the type of difficulties that women encounter, both in the workplace, in societies, and in the household. This is the first step. The second step, I believe, is to speak up. So to also encourage other men around you, whether you are confronting a specific situation or you are assisting to discriminations, or you're seeing a woman being let down for any specific reason, whether it is violence, whether it is discrimination, more direct or soft. That is an occasion for you to speak up and to not let that pass by as something that is common, that should not be outlined, should not be discriminated. So this is also very important. As a third step, I believe it comes to supporting women in general, whatever their goals are. If it regards getting a certain decision-making position, so supporting women's leadership, but also supporting women in general. I thought of an example also when it comes to household. Men and women should contribute together to the care of the house, of the family. And sometimes we hear men saying to the women, I can help you. Well, this is the kind of attitude that is wrong, because it's implicitly outlining that the responsibility stays on the woman and the man is only helping. So it's only adding something that is supposedly staying on the woman's back. Well, that's not the case. So couples do things together and work toward a certain goal, because all the opportunities, all the duties should be equally divided within the couple, but also in the workplace. If you agree.
I personally think that's 100% true. The responsibilities should always be shared. Otherwise, we're not gonna overcome this this difference ever, because it starts, as we previously said, it starts most times in the household. So it's also in the household that great change should take place, besides the legislation, and also in society. Do you wanna maybe add something else, or no? I think, yeah, we.
I think Julia said. I think she put it very well. I think she put it very well. It's just about men being openly supportive in speaking up, and walking the talk. Don't we say gender inequality, we say it and it sounds, like it's something happening out there, but it happens on a personal level. It happens to people in relationships, just the little things. So speaking up publicly, but also doing the little things in the background to your daughters, to your sisters, any woman around you. Do the things, be part of the solution, whatever, and no effort is too small. In changing a culture, in changing a mindset, no effort is too small. So I think men should speak up in public, but in private, they should also do the little things that show that they believe in what they speak about.
Also because certain gender stereotypes are heavy for men as well when it comes to responsibility that they have on the family in terms of economic independence, or the workload that they're issued from in the workspace, where maybe taking some time off to stay with the family is not regarded as something valuable and men should work. This is also something that is damaging men, and it's connected, for example, to life expectancy. This is a reason why women tend to live longer. And so there are many issues that go around this that are, of course, multidisciplinary and multilateral, and should engage everyone eventually for the progress, both ethical, moral, but actually also economic of our society.
Yes, I 100% agree with what you just said, Julia and Efe. And in fact, something that we haven't talked about today, but is actually important, is the concept of equality which means that men are equal to women and women are equal to men, and which means that the concept of the traditional masculinity, which is restricting the actions of men, should also be tackled by society. So this is something that we should work actually on together, and from the different points of view, from the inequities and the difficulties that women are facing in the work environment, in the life environment, in the family environment, but also all the difficulties that men are also facing, and mix them together, work together in order to change something and make the gender equality a real thing that is really happening right now. So yes, I agree.
Thank you. I think Oriyomi just told me she's having some connection problems due to the weather. So I'm not sure if she's able to comment. But thank you again, Yuval, for your question. And I'd say we can close the webinar here and our talk. I want to thank you all again, both on behalf of Mondo Internazionale and the Mondo Internazionale Nigeria, and also on my behalf. It's been a really inspiring talk to see what have been your experiences, your difficulties, and how you think we can should push forward the let's say gender equality agenda.